What is up, Knicks fans? Welcome back to yet another episode of Fireside Knicks with your host, Dylan Backer. And last night, the New York Knicks had arguably one of their best games really in the history of the franchise. I mean, they just dismantled the Denver Nuggets on the road by winning by a final score of 145 to 118. Those 145 points are the most that any NBA team has scored in a single game this season. There are so many good things I could talk about with this game, but I think I should address the first and obvious thing, and that is OG Anunoby. What a month he is having. I mean, he had been phenomenal already in the month of November entering the game last night, but last night he just had the best performance of his career, really. I mean, 40 points, 16 of 23 from the floor, 5 of 7 from 3. I mean, he was just everywhere. They could not stop that guy whatsoever, and really, I don't think it's a stretch anymore to say that he can make a run at the All-Star game. I really do. I mean, we made a video the other day talking about OG's recent success, and, I said that maybe I don't think he'll make the All-Star team, and, quite frankly, I'm going to still say that he ultimately will not make the All-Star team. I'm just going to speak that from an objective standpoint because it is going to be tough to make the All-Star team over some talented wings in the East, such as, like, Giannis and other players like that, but either way, OG has just been phenomenal. I mean, this is a different version of OG that we are seeing. We used to seeing him kind of just be like a catch and shoot guy, catch and shoot for threes, cutting for occasional dunks here and there. This guy's doing that, and he's also, putting the ball on the floor more, taking more responsibility as a facilitator, and actually trying to create his own looks in the mid-range and stuff, and it's working amazingly. I mean, he's quickly become the team's third option. It was supposed to be Mikal Bridges, but it's been OG Anunoby this season. He's averaging now close to 20 points per game on the season. He's averaging well over 20 points per game in the month of November. He's just been phenomenal. I mean, I'm talking all about the offense here. And this goes without saying how great he's been defensively. I mean, last night, Denver Nugget players that shot against him as the primary defender were 7 for 21. So he's not only locking him up on defense, but he's getting it done on offense. And look what happens when that happens. The Knicks end up winning by 30 points, dominating a really good Denver Nuggets team, coming off of a crushing loss against the Utah Jazz as well. I mean, that game, not a single player had it going except Anunoby. Anunoby was the only one in that Jazz game that had it going. He had 27 points in that game, and he knocked down 7 3-pointers. I wasn't so sure if this run that he was having was going to be sustainable, if it was going to continue. It's only getting better, though. I mean, I could not have imagined him having a 40-point game. I couldn't have. This is a guy who his previous career high was 36 points, which he had with the Raptors, which actually was against the Knicks, too, believe it or not. But that was his previous career high. So I really didn't think that any 40-point games or anything like that was going to come about from this guy because, he's on a team with Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns, who also had great games, by the way, which I'm going to get into, but he's on the same team as those two guys. Those two guys are going to take over the main, scoring responsibilities. I think everyone expects that, right? But Anunoby, meanwhile, has quickly become the third option, and the past couple nights, he's been the top option. He has been the main guy, to score for this Knicks team. And it's working. I mean, they've won 5 of their last 6 games behind Anunoby's excellence on offense. He's had a few 20-plus point games this month. Obviously getting it done on defense as well. He leads the team in steals and block shots this month as well. He also has the highest plus-minus on the Knicks at plus 112, which is also the 18th best in the NBA. He's just been amazing since he got traded to the Knicks last year. But this year, this is a whole new level. I mean, he's taken his game to a whole new step, whole new level. He really can make the All-Star team. He can. And I don't know if he's going to. It's still way too early for me to be saying that he's definitely going to make the All-Star team. But whether or not he makes the All-Star team or not, his impact that he provides is equally as similar to what an All-Star would give you. It is. The numbers on paper are not eye-popping to an All-Star. 19 points per game, 5 or 6 rebounds per night. You see those numbers and you go, okay, that's pretty good, but probably not an All-Star, right? But if you watch him play, he does all the little things too, like, the ball denial on defense when he's not, when he's guarding off ball. Of course, the on-ball defense as well, sticking to your man, staying home and playing good, closing out well and all that stuff. The rebounds as well, the slashing, the leaking out in transition, all those little things, it contributes to winning. I mean, this is something that, the Knicks were never getting before they traded for Anunoby. They were struggling to have kind of that third guy that can really go off on any given night and, provide them winning. I know a lot of people are going to say RJ Barrett, but let's be honest here. RJ Barrett didn't exactly provide them with winning basketball. He had some good games individually, but it never contributed to winning. And even this year on the Raptors, he's having a great season. I'm not going to deny that. RJ Barrett's been balling. I have much respect for him. I hope he does well in Toronto. But they're not winning games. It's not winning basketball. OG Anunoby is providing winning basketball. Even if he isn't putting up 40 points every single night, he's still contributing positively every single night on both ends of the floor. And that really is what an all-star does. That's what all-stars do. And again, it's going to be tough for him to actually get selected to the all-star team, but he's making an all-star impact. He's making a very strong case for it, and I do think he should deserve to get some recognition at the end of the day. And of course, if this run that he's having right now continues into December and January, and he's averaging well over 20 points by that stretch, he really needs to get some all-star votes, because this guy is already top 5 defensive player of the year type player. He's already going to probably be all NBA first or second team defense. So he really is one of the best all-around players in the league right now, and he needs to get recognized for that. I really do. He's been one of the best players overall in the NBA in the month of November, and it needs to get recognized. But moving on to some other moving parts from this game against Denver, of course, the 145 points, that's just ridiculous. Of course, 40 points from Anunoby, as I was just talking about for the past 5 minutes. But how about Jalen Brunson for a minute? He had 23 points, which isn't, his usual type of game, but 17 assists. That is a career high for Jalen Brunson, and he was, coming into this season, he was obviously going to have to kind of become more of a facilitator, playing around guys that are scoring a lot more, such as Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, guys like that, right? But he's really started to really take the playmaking to a whole new level. I mean, in the month of November, he's really gotten it going. His past 7 or 8 games, he's had 7 to 10 assists almost every single night. And then last night, of course, the 17 assists, which led to a team high 45 assists, which ties a franchise record for the most in a single game all the way back to 1979. That was one of the best performances that the Knicks have ever put on in a single game in the history of the franchise. I don't think that's hyperbolic to say. I do think that they legitimately had one of the best games ever. Obviously the defense was better. It was, but at the end of the day they did give up 118 points, but a lot of those points also came from Russell Westbrook's random 24-point explosion in the fourth quarter when they were already down by 30 points. So I'm not going to look too deeply into that. I'm going to focus heavily on the offense though, because this team had been a great offense through the first 16 games entering last night's game. They had been a great offense. Obviously, the Utah Jazz game was just a complete anomaly. That bad nights happen. They're going to have nights like that. It happens. I wasn't too worried about that. I was hoping that they would kind of just flush that down the toilet and kind of just, move past it. And they did that. And they not only did that, they did that in a huge way with the big statement win against Denver, a very good Denver Nuggets team who just got Nikola Jokic back, by the way. They were a great team. They're still a great team. They're going to compete hard in the Western Conference once again. And the Knicks just dismantled them. And this is the second time in a row they've dismantled them. Because if we remember last season, when we were at Madison Square Garden and we faced Denver Nuggets, same thing. They dismantled them. They absolutely destroyed them at Madison Square Garden. They won by 30 points. Jokic and the guys did not play in the fourth quarter, similar to last night. They've dominated them the last 2 games. And I really think OG Anunoby's presence is what makes the difference. Of course, Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns doing great things. Karl-Anthony Towns, by the way, 30 points, 15 rebounds last night, 12 of 15 from the floor, 2 of 2 from 3. Really good bounce-back game after what was just an awful night in Utah for him. I mean, terrible. Easily his worst game of the season. Towns now has 7 30-point games this season. That is already more than he had all of last season with the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's having a fantastic season, too. I think he's easily going to end up as an all-star this year at some point. He might even end up in the MVP conversation down the road. Of course, that sounds very bold, so I'll hold off on that one for now, but the numbers do not lie. He's one of the most efficient players in the league right now. He's been one of the best rebounders in the league, and he's scoring at a high rate. He's having his best season of his career right now, and of course it's with Tom Thibodeau as his head coach once again, the coach that he reunited with in Minnesota. And it's worth noting, too, that when he was with Thibodeau back in Minnesota, he had his best seasons there. So Tom Thibodeau gets the best out of Karl-Anthony Towns, just like he does out of all of his other big men that he has under his wing. So really good efforts from him as well. I think really the only guy that I think we need to see more from, and I think everyone knows who I'm going to say, Mikal Bridges. I think really he's the one guy we're still missing something from. Now, I'm going to give him a little bit of slack because out of all the players that have come in this year, out of all the roles that have been changing, Mikal Bridges is the one who's had to adjust his role the most. It is because, he was the number 1 option on Brooklyn for a year and a half, and they're kind of trying to get him back to being what he was in Phoenix while also still exhibiting some of that top option skill set that he had in Brooklyn. So it's an adjustment period. It is. I mean, the 3-point woes last night, maybe it was just a bad shooting night because he was getting clean looks. I mean, the offense was flowing like crazy last night. He was getting very good looks all night. He had a lot of wide open threes. They just weren't falling. At that point, what can you really do? You're just in a shooting slump at that point. He was bad against Utah as well. He went only 3 of 15 against Utah, 1 of 7 from 3. These bad nights happen. And I'm not going to worry about him too much just now because I know Mikal Bridges I know what he's capable of. I know he's capable of being an elite two-way wing, just like how Anunoby is playing right now. I know Mikal Bridges is capable of doing the exact same thing, if not on a higher level. So I'm not going to worry too much right now. Yes, it's alarming and concerning right now that he is shooting under 30% from 3 as well, considering that he's a lifetime 37% shooter from outside the arc, but overall, I'm not going to worry too much right now. I think he just needs to really figure out his role, figure out where he belongs on this team, where he belongs in the starting 5. It's going to take time. I don't even think the team is really hitting their stride yet with full chemistry. Yes, they've been playing fantastic basketball of late. They've won 5 of their last 6 games, like I said, 3 games over 500. They're 10-7 now as they're wrapping up the West Coast trip. They got Dallas Mavericks tomorrow night, and then the Charlotte Hornets on Friday, day after Thanksgiving. So, I'm excited to see how they close out the month. They're playing great right now. But, of course, I think we can all agree we're still missing something a little bit from Mikal Bridges a little bit. And I hope that when we do get healthier, when Precious Achiuwa inevitably comes back very soon, hopefully Mitchell Robinson not too long after that as well, when those guys come back, I'm hoping that Bridges can kind of really figure things out and get things going because then there'll be more options on the floor that you have to pay attention to. So I'm just going to hope for that right now. I'm going to wait it out. I'm going to give him the most time out of everyone else because, like I just said earlier, he's the one who's had to change his role the most. He's the one who's had to play a different type of role this year. Of course, the defense concerns are, they're valid. They're valid concerns. I think really we want to see a lot better effort on that end of the floor, and I've said that before as well, that I want to see better defensive effort from Mikal Bridges, and I do think we will get that at some point. I think, again, it's going to take time, and it is what it is. I think right now, though, it isn't too much of a deterrent to where it's costing us games because, against Utah, everybody shot the ball poorly. I'm not going to point the finger strictly at Mikal Bridges in that game when everybody played bad. Everybody except OG Anunoby played bad in that game, so I can't really point the finger at him. But last night I think he would have really liked to see himself have a good game after everyone else basically had great games on their own individual standpoint. So that's really all I got to say about that. And one other guy I want to touch on real quick before I do wrap this up, Cameron Payne. How about him lately? He stepped up in the 6-man role when Deuce McBride went out with a knee injury, and Deuce McBride just came back last night against Denver and had a great game himself, 13 points off the bench. But Cameron Payne has been the spark plug lately. He really has. He came into the game last night against Denver and the juice he provided, the spark he provided, it really got the Knicks going. He came into the game when they were up by like maybe 10 points or something like that. And then after a couple shots that he hits, a couple hustle plays he makes, all of a sudden they're up by 23 points. It's the energy he provides, the spark, the hustle, all that stuff. It really can get a team going. It really can. And what he's been doing lately has really gotten the team going. Over his last 7 games or so, he's averaging 11 points per game. He's been shooting the ball really well as well. Really efficient numbers, close to 50% from 3. All that stuff. So really just been phenomenal lately. I gotta tip my cap to him because this is somebody that, entering the season, I didn't think I was really gonna, I don't want to say like a whole lot, but I didn't think I was really gonna think much of him. I didn't even think he was gonna play like that. I wasn't even sure what his role was gonna look like. I thought Tyler Kolek had a good chance at making the rotation over Cameron Payne before the start of the season. I think a lot of people would agree with me on that as well. But Cameron Payne has been just phenomenal. You can't take this guy out of the rotation. He's gonna play a massive role when the rest of the guys come back, when Achiuwa comes back, when Robinson comes back. All of a sudden that bench unit looks really good. It does. And that's a very positive sign considering that was one of the biggest concerns that we had coming into the season. And it still is a concern. They still rank last in bench points. They're second to last in rebounds. I do think that will change a lot though when Achiuwa comes back especially. And then when Robinson comes back, you kind of have a complete bench finally. And you can finally run a strong second unit because then you have a second unit of Deuce McBride, Cameron Payne, Precious Achiuwa, Mitchell Robinson. That's a good second unit. It is. And it's deep. You have Achiuwa and Robinson to play in the front court. You can have a mix and match to play center behind Towns. You could even play Achiuwa alongside Towns or even Robinson alongside Towns if you really want to as well. You have a lot of versatility, a lot of different options, and it's a good unit. It is. I think it'll end up being very good on the scoring front. I think you'll get some good rebounds out of that as well. Some better defense, some good hustle. It's a good combination. I'm looking forward to that. But that's really all I got to say about this Denver Nuggets game, guys. I really wanted to come on here and talk about that because that was one of the best Knicks games I've ever watched from an offensive standpoint. I mean, that team, the Knicks last night were just lighting it up. They shot over 60% from the field and over 53% from three. I mean, they couldn't miss. This must have been how the Celtics felt on opening night when they absolutely wiped the floor against us. That must have been how they felt because what the Knicks did last night was probably the best offensive performance by a team in the league this season. Really one of the best offensive performances by a team in the past few seasons especially. And probably, or maybe not probably, but possibly one of the best offensive performances in team history. I mean, that was an amazing game last night. So, really good bounce back win, great statement win. The Knicks are back now. They're back to their winning ways, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how they close out the month. So that, guys, that's really all I got to say about this. So let us know what you think about the Denver Nuggets game in the comment section below. And also some of the other stuff I talked about, such as OG's All-Star case, Jalen Brunson's playmaking, Karl-Anthony Towns being great so far, all that stuff. Let me know what you think about that because I would love to talk with you guys about that. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, of course, this YouTube page that you were watching the video on. You can follow my personal Twitter account. It's right there on the screen. And I will see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks, and happy Thanksgiving. Peace out.